Hey, Evan Reese here. I was recently working on a project that needed some metric timber profiles. I believe timber is the word that you metric folks use for lumber. And so to do that, I already had my lumber profiles set up here. I used this with the frames feature, and I outlined how I made this in a different video. I'll link to that one here. But I wanted to add on to this, and instead of making a whole separate metric part studio for that, I just wanted to change it from this drop down. So here's what I've got set up. Here's where we're headed, and I will show you how to get this set up. So when I choose inch, you can see that the only sizes I have available here in size are inch. And when I choose metric, then I get all metric sizes, and I can choose from any of those, and it updates the size accordingly. So there we go. This is all working. As soon as the conditional visibility for configuration inputs was launched, I think the very first request was to be able to do this, and it can be done. It does take a little bit of cleverness using a tiny bit of code syntax, but if you're not a code person, it's not hard. It's very approachable. You don't have to really understand it. Just do what I do, and you'll be good. All right, so let me show you how to get this set up using a combination of some clever variable stuff and some visibility conditions. So this document this part studio is just a copy of this one with all the magic taken out so that we can build it together again. So to build the standard dropdown, pretty easy. I'm just going to call this one standard. I went add configuration input down here, standard, and we'll make our options inch and metric. Great. Now we have that here. Next, I'm going to make, we'll call this inch size. And so we'll add our list of imperial sizes here, and I'll add another one for metric. I'm not worrying too hard about the names right now because we can change those at the end. And if we name them both size instead of inch size and metric size, then we'll get what we were seeing here, where they both have the same exact name. But for now, I'm going to leave inch and metric in there just so I can keep them straight while I'm working on it. Okay. So the other thing that we need to do, like right now, this thing is all driven by these thickness and width variables. So if I check the final button and change this, we're just changing the thickness of our profile. Pretty standard. And what I would normally do if I just had one list to choose from is I would just configure these directly in that list. But we have two lists to choose from, and this one will help us decide which list to pay attention to. So let me show you how to set that up. Before I do, I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste the values from the other studio into here so we're working with real numbers. To do that, I'm going to come here, find these are my inch sizes. I can just copy the input, but just to show you how to actually copy the table as well, you can just hit copy table. So now I have all this on my clipboard and go to the first cell, paste it. Oh, I haven't configured anything yet. Hang on. All right, I skipped a step. So we first need to set up some variables that can be configured by each of these. So we're going to have inch thickness, enter, shift enter to call it again, inch width, metric thickness, metric width. Great. And we don't need any values there because we're about to configure them. So inch size, configure features, and then I'll grab that value, click this feature, and grab that value. So now I've got thickness and width configured here, and when we paste our list in, it'll add all the rows we need, which I think is still on the clipboard. Look at that. I want to delete, because it gives me headers as well, name, value, and all that, and I want to delete that. So I can't delete this one because the row is active. It's like, see this blue box. So I'm going to right click this one, switch to that. So now I've got that, and I can delete that row, and I can delete this row. Great. Let's do the same for metric. Configure that, and copy table. Oh, I think kids are coming. Hang on. delete that and delete that. Cool. So now we've got our tables are configured. If I choose an inch size here, you can see that my inch variables are going to update. And if I choose a different size from my metric table, these are going to update. They're different than the nominal, remembering that the nominal size is a little different than when it's actually like milled down. So, all right, all we got to do now is use this dropdown to tell it which one of these variables to pay attention to in our thickness and width. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to use an array. So I'm going to create an index here. I'm just going to call it standard index. And I'm going to configure that with my standard. So when it's set to inch, standard index will be 0. And when it's set to metric, it will be 1. So let me show you how this works. Inside of thickness, instead of just configuring this directly, we're going to give it a list of 2 options. And one of them is going to be whatever value the thickness is for inch, and the other is the value for the thickness of metric. And then we'll use an index to tell it which one to look at. So this is the syntax for an array, brackets, and you have a comma to separate the values. So imagine we have value A and value B, and then to address it, you use more brackets and a number as the index. So it starts at 0 and counts up, and you can have as many values in here as you want. So which also means if you add an additional standard, inch, metric, and something else, you could add a third one. So if I type a 0, this will return A, and if I type a 1, it would return B. But we're not going to use A and B. We're actually going to use inch thickness and metric thickness. And instead of this 0 hard-coded in here, we're going to use our standard index. Great. And we'll do the same for width. I like to just type all of this stuff in sometimes first so I get my syntax right. Inch width and not inch, metric width, standard index. Cool. All right, so now thickness and width are going to update based on the selection from our standard and which one of these we're going on. So if I have inch size, let's say it's a 2x4. We all have probably seen a 2x4. And let's make this one something very different. That's a much bigger size. So now, because we're in metric, it's getting the actual. So here's the nominal and here's the actual sizes of that. And for inch, now we're getting these to update because we are addressing the first item in our array instead of the second. And that's all we need. So if I roll this to the end, now the size of this thing is going to be updating based on whether we choose inch or metric. And all that's left to do is tidy this up a little bit. First, I'm going to move the checkbox down to the bottom. And let's go set up our visibility conditions here. So for inch size, add a condition. If the standard is inch, show up. And for metric, do the same. If it's metric, it will show up. Cool. So now we get metric size and we get inch size. And now that that's done, I'm going to just rename them both size. So there you go. Now we're getting 2 different lists driving the values in my model based on a different dropdown. I hope that you found that useful. If you did, I hope you'll like and subscribe and do all the YouTube stuff. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I'll read them all and I'll do my best to answer. Thanks for watching.